This week on Supercars Talk, I have a moment of sadness for the win that got away from Tander and refuse to watch the after race show because of basically the Scaife love fest for Lowndes and Whincup. Before I get on to the racing of the weekend, there was some big news. I'm not sure what the biggest one was for the weekend. Simona not going to be in the series next year. That's been confirmed. Obviously, they've been trying to work away at something that hasn't happened. Only 2 seats at Nissan. Yeah, they're keeping Heimgartner there, obviously, and haven't found her a seat anywhere else. So she's off to do her Porsche testing duties full time. I think people are probably making a bigger deal out of that than what it is. There's been no confirmed race program or anything. It's just Formula E testing duties, which, as far as I know, you get a free test day if you've got a female test driver. So yeah. The other, probably the bigger one, was finally, it's confirmed, Scott Pye's leaving Walkinshaw Andretti United. That's not really news. It's been known for a long time that he was out of that seat. Where he was going was a big question. Team 18. So I think that's a pretty good pickup for Charlie. A nice strong lineup for them next year. Winterbottom and Scott Pye. Definitely not, a number one team kind of, lineup. But he's been doing a pretty good job against Courtney in some pretty ordinary equipment. So be interesting to see what he can do in the car that should have won the race today. Actually, they've bought Shane Van Gisbergen's current car. Van Gisbergen's getting a new car for next year. So they've got that one coming in. I assume Frosty's going to continue in the same car, which I think was Jamie Whincup's from last year. So cars are not the problem there. It also looks like the night races at the Gold Coast will be going ahead next year. A lot of people seem to be pretty butthurt over this. Having a big cry about 2 cars getting written off this year in the daytime. What's going to happen at night? Well, going off previous night races and, like Singapore and things like that, the track's going to be lit up like it's daytime anyway. Just that you can't see the buildings and stuff in the backdrop. You're going to see everything on the track, and that it's not, like Le Mans where they're blazing along at full speed in the middle of the night just with the headlights going. There's that much light around. It's not going to make it any worse. So, once again, storm in a teacup kind of thing. It looked great around, street circuits at night look brilliant. So, yeah, don't complain. And speaking of next year, change to the tyre regulations. Now, this one's been kind of, on the back burner for a while. So currently we have this weird thing where you have a tyre bank back at the factory. So I'm not sure how many tyres you're allowed to keep, but they at the end of the weekend, they take away a certain amount of tyres, and the teams keep a certain amount of tyres, and they take them back to the factory and they put them in these specially air-conditioned rooms and whatever to keep them in good condition. And say if you have a weekend like Chaz had at the Gold Coast where they didn't do any racing, that means they have a heap of tyres that are good ones that they kind of hang on to and they take back, and they can use them at a later date. And you have this situation where on Fridays, people are running around on their tyre bank, essentially. Which, who knows, Chaz could have a heap of good tyres where someone who's done all the races and, whatever, has got crappy tyres, and they're running around on Friday, and you get the thing at the end of Friday where, someone's like, yeah, I'm the winner, I'm the fastest and all that, and they're like, well, he had a good set of tyres, and we were running around on crappy tyres, and you're forever trying to figure out what's going on. And when the series goes over to New Zealand, because of the quarantine laws or whatever, they have to take new tyres over there. So it's been quite good, when they've gone to race in New Zealand, because everybody on a Friday is on good tyres. We know where they're all at. They can set the cars up properly, etc., etc. So anyway, next year, tyre bank is essentially gone. They will have some tyres that they take back, but they're only going to be used to, say, warm the car up and transporting and things like that. They're not going to be tyres that they use at the circuit, really. So essentially all new tyres each weekend. I think the tyre bank thing was originally done as a bit of a cost saving idea, but now because they're in, you know, climate controlled rooms and things like that, and you've got someone back at the factory, you know, keeping track of it all and this kind of crap, the costs have actually escalated on that whole cost saving thing. And really, I think the sets of tyres, I think they're paying around $250, $300 for each tyre, which is kind of what you spend on a road car tyre anyway. It's not enough. I think Dunlop subsidises it a bit for the teams. When you think what it's costing to run around, you know, a few sets of tyres each weekend, you know, nothing. So, and also on the back of that as well, Dunlop has signed a new 5-year deal with the series. So that's good. You know, they have a pretty good product. The breaking news from this morning, which I'm filming on Sunday, so it was this morning. Scott McLaughlin lost his Bathurst pole. Now, I'd love to get into the nitty gritty of all this, but it's that engine thing where, as I said, you know, kind of air and fuel goes in, explosions and power comes out the back. So I don't know about all the nitty gritty of the internals of it. As far as I know, this engine was going wrong and something has kind of, it hasn't broken, but it's moved the lifter or something like that in a few of the cylinders. So essentially it's had a bit of a failure, and they've found that this has put it out of the tolerances that the engine's supposed to be in. And so then it's illegal. He's lost his pole position. I assume he's had to hand back the Armourer check or whatever, given it to Chaz Mostert. They got a $30,000 fine for it, and he went to the back of the grid at Sandown. No advantage from this. This is a massive storm in a teacup as far as I can see. The way I understand it, and I'd love to hear from someone who understands all this kind of stuff better than me, but the way I'm thinking is, say you get punted in the side or something, and you know, obviously your car shape has changed, so the aero changes on the car, and they go, oh, you know, because you modified the aerodynamics on your car, that's a penalty kind of thing. That's kind of the way I see it. Or when I'm just trying to remember who lost their exhaust at Gold Coast, but saying the exhaust falls off, and say the exhaust is 10 kilos or whatever, and you weigh the car after the race and go, oh, your car's 10 kilos underweight, you know, I understand you lost your exhaust, but you know, your car's 10 kilos underweight, so disqualified. That's the way I kind of see it. Yeah, I don't fully understand this one. Yeah, and anyway, smarter people than me make these decisions. On to the weekend, and as I said last week, all the jerks brought their liveries out on Wednesday. Not sure why they would have done that. When you're doing it all together, it kind of dilutes it. You would have been better off like what Supercheap did with their, you know, Coke-inspired Mustang thing. Released it last week when you're the only one in the news. Yeah, so anyway, we had Percat, not really a retro livery, but a retro sponsor, Fujitsu, back in the series. Be great if we saw them more. Car looked reasonable, not one of the best ones from them for the year, but yeah. And on the Brad Jones cars, Tim Slade, last week we did actually see Macaulay Jones's car in the white Aussie Mail livery. Tim Slade, they had the black Aussie Mail. Why is that so hard to say? They had the black Aussie Mail livery that John Bow ran back in the days at that team, so that was kind of cool. And they also had like a retro Freightliner livery down the side of the cars as well. Walkinshaw Andretti United looked really good, except for those placeholder sponsors that are on the sides of the cars. Yeah, won't get into that too much, but they went the 1999 old HRT livery. Looked great having the line and the helmet down the side of the car again. Brought back some good memories. Kind of a Scafey and that fan from a long time ago, so that was good seeing that, and yeah, enjoyed those. Team 18, they went for a NASCAR Irwin livery from Kurt Busch's 2004 NASCAR Championship. Apparently that looked really good in bright sunlight. Didn't get much of that over the weekend, but Techno, they ran Bob Morris 1979 Australian Touring Car Championship, the old the Mustang livery there. That looked really good, and my favourite, and what seemed to be kind of a fan favourite for, of all the people that I kind of spoke to, the Penrite cars, they ran the old JPS BMW livery that Jimmy Richards took to the 1987 Australian Touring Car Championship. That looked great out on the track, and I was kind of hoping that they'd win on the weekend so I could justify buying that model. If they do release a model of it though, I think I might buy it and put it next to Jimmy's BMW. So, after all that, there was actually some racing over the weekend. Start off with the co-driver race, and funnily enough, I think I'd said about McLaughlin putting it on pole, and then whichever Triple Eight car qualified next to him would go on and beat Prema and win the race, and that's exactly what happened. Will Brown came along and spoiled the Triple Eight party though. Tander decided to let the young buck go, and it's a big race tomorrow, which other things happened in there. So a few notes from the race here. I've got Jack Smith, Todd Hazelwood qualified, I think it was about 15th, and Jack Smith went to the back. Not sure he's quite ready for a full-time drive next year. He's not bad, but yeah, in the way the field is these days, he was he made Alex Rouleau look really good, we'll just say that. So we had Forward, that was pretty spectacular, did a full 360, didn't even lose a spot. I think that was partly because Prema didn't want to damage the car. He was leaving that for Scott to scratch. And then the big incident of the race, James Moffat. What was he thinking? He may as well have been blaming Marcus Ericsson, because he was as involved in that one as what Alex Prema was. I think he got a bit confused about who was crashing into who, and he kind of lost it and crashed into the wrong Tickford car. Obviously didn't get the memo that the Supercharged car crashes into the monster car, not the Bottle car. So still got a bit to learn there. Learn who to blame for the accident. In this case, it's yourself, James. And remember, hit the right Tickford car. Don't hit Holdsworth's one. So anyway, lots of lessons to be learned. Lowndes won, Will Brown was second, Tander third. The biggest improver, not surprisingly, was Michael Caruso, who jumped up 7 spots. The kind of the guys just out of the race seat, so your Tander, Lowndes, Caruso's, they did brilliantly, and the guys who are kind of leading the Super 2 Championship, Will Brown's, Bryce Forwards, of course, they did a really good job. Thomas Randall as well. So you can see where you probably want to be looking for your co-drivers. Simona Di Silvestro, anyone? Then we got to see the main driver race. Really the only thing that happened during the whole race was at the start, and Shane van Gisbergen kind of outbraked himself and ploughed himself into Anton. Craig Baird, obviously, Roland Dane's feeding him the 50s at this point, and he's like, of course it's Anton's fault. The script kind of got wrecked when, Shane gets out of the car and goes, well, sorry about that. No, definitely not Anton's fault. And Craig Baird had to do a lot of backpedaling on that. I'm not sure if he had to return the donation from Roland Dane or not. But yeah, he admitted he made a mistake, and everyone's, oh, how big of him, you know. What about a lot of the other mistakes that have been made? So anyway, at the end of the day, Whincup had a pretty crazy run. Jaime ended up second because of that. His best result of the year. They're looking really good. Reynolds third. And the biggest mover of the day, we had, well, the two biggest movers. And part of this was because guys went out on wet tyres and some were on slicks. So there wasn't a big difference between. So there was no point in actually pitting to change over either way. But Brody Kostecki jumped up 13 spots. He finished 8th, and Chaz Mostert jumped up 16 spots to finish 9th. So that was actually quite good seeing those guys kind of come through the field. The big race, there was a couple of little incidents early on. We had Luke Yilden shutting the door on Jake Kostecki, and then we had Tony D'Alberto shutting the door on Richard Muscat. Just the usual kind of not giving people room, things like that. Yeah, you know, sensibility prevailed and no one got penalties for those. Then we saw the Yilden, Dalewood and Richard Muscat incident. Seems to be a few names popping up here. So everyone had a bit of overlap. Muscat was coming across on Wood, who then Yilden ran out of room. Now, really, Yilden should have kind of gone, you know, we're pretty early on in an endurance race here. I'm not the main driver. I'll just feather the throttle a little bit, let them go. We'll live to fight another day. No, Dukes of Hazzard, we'll keep the boot in it, spin him around. Yeah. It's essentially what Tander did to Coulthard a few years ago, although Coulthard's car destroyed itself. But let's not get into that, because, yeah, Coulthard had a big cry and whatnot. Anyway, yeah, both cars essentially out of the race. Reynolds didn't even get a drive. Kelly, they kind of taped it back together and they went around and putted around at the back of the field. Yeah, didn't need to happen. It was a bit stupid, but yeah, you know, he was out of the race, so no one got a, you know, penalty or anything. The other one for the race was the Kostecki and Caruso incident. I was surprised. We saw another broken steering arm, which was the same as what happened with Moffat when he was Marcus Ericsson, wasn't it, that punted him. Yeah, so if you don't get my reference to the Ericsson, look back at Baku, I think last year, Roman Grosjean was weaving under the safety car and trying to keep the tyres warm and lost it and punched it into the wall, and he came over the radio and said, Ericsson hit me, and Ericsson was about 10 car lengths behind at the time, so Grosjean lost it all by himself. So essentially, anything that happens is Ericsson's fault. Anyway, back where we're at. Yeah, when Moffat punched into the side of the wrong Tickford car, it just broke the steering straight away and off he went, kind of thing. The same thing when, according to Cam Waters, when Kostecki, you know, rammed him off the track. Yeah, when Caruso was up on that and they kind of touched on the side, and you saw the wheel wobble straight away. So, you know, these Tickford steerings are a little bit weak. Maybe when Mostert's driving a Walkinshaw car next year, it'll be a bit more heavy duty for him. Still not confirmed. Anyway, not much happened after that until we saw, you know, Garth Tander have a storming drive. It was a bit unfair seeing a main driver with all the co-drivers in some kind of turbocharged rocket ship. Oh wait, no, not a full-time driver and just in, you know, your average shitbox Commodore. Yeah, that was, he was just passing them like they were standing still nearly. It was just like, you know, lap 1 we passed one, well, we passed about 8 on lap 1, but then it's like lap 2, another one, lap 3, another one, lap 4, another one. The next thing they're in the lead. They're on a bit of a different pit cycle to the other car, and Scafie was getting all excited when that last pit stop happened, and yeah, they were gone. they were miles out in the lead. Maybe Shane should have backed it off because, as we saw, the suspension fell apart and the dream was over. Whincup went on to win the race, and if you go off the graphics at the end of the race, Whincup won the race all by himself. Believe it or not, he did have a teammate in Craig Lowndes. It was the same for the other guys as well. You know, it was like Mostert had come second by himself, and Lee Holdsworth finally got another podium. Believe it or not, his last podium was when he won in that Erebus car at Winton back in whenever it was, 2014 or something, which is a very long time ago. I did see him tearing up in the car, and then I did turn the telecast off because I was I was a bit over the especially the Lowndes love from Scafie, so I thought this is just going to go to the next level, seeing as they'd actually run the race. McLaughlin became the champion, so champion-elect. We've still got to go through Newcastle, see what penalties they can come up with for the Penske car over the next couple of weeks. Be interesting. Maybe the Sandown engine, they'll find that, something's wrong with that or whatever. Penske still holds on to the team's championship lead, so that's a little something that's pretty close. So that's something to play out at Newcastle still, even though the championship's over. And we did see, once again, these Walkinshaw cars. Courtney didn't move up too much. Pye and Luff, they moved up 17 positions to finish 5th. So when Chaz and Adam DeBore are there next year, with a bit more budget and whatever developments they've got coming and whatnot, it's a good place to be for endurance races. So that's my Sandown 500 review. I was having a great day until the wheel basically fell off the Van Gisbergen Tander car. It will save me buying that model. I was probably going to buy that one and add it to the collection. Won't have to do that now because they didn't end up coming really anywhere. So, it was a good day if you're a Whincup or Lowndes fan. They got to win the Enduro Cup as well. So, until next time, I'll see you later.
Put away your inhibitions. Let the beast in you just get loose. We all young, wild, and